Good evening. It is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. It's 6:30 p.m. and I'm going to call the Finance Committee to session. First up, roll call. Mr. Bellin is here. Mr. Barr.
Here.
And Mr. Post.
Here.
All right. Also in attendance, we have the rest of council, we have the mayor, and we have Ms. Conway. Do we have any audience participation this evening? Seeing none. Approval of the January 23rd, 2024 Finance Committee minutes. Did everybody have an opportunity to read them?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Mr. Post makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Barr seconds. I'm going to abstain as I was not at that meeting. Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
All right. Minutes are approved 2-0 as submitted. Next up on the agenda is the presentation on the overview of House Bill 296. Ms. Conway.
Good evening. So this is an item that has been briefly talked about over the last couple months. There has been talk with the state legislature of increasing the employer contribution amount for police pensions to match that of fire. So on the first slide, Mark, if you could move to the, there we go. So the current employer contribution amount for the police officers is 19.5%, and for fire is 24%. The employee contribution amounts are the same at 12.25%. So House Bill 296 really wants to bridge that gap over the next 3 years to increase the police employer portion to 24% as well. So currently the average patrol officer for the city of Twinsburg is making a little over $80,000. That means that the city's average contribution for a patrol officer is right now a little short of $16,000. The average firefighter for the city is making around $82,000, and the city's portion of that contribution is a little under $20,000. So if we can go to the next.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So that's the average of what their salary is. Do you pay overtime? Do we pay retirement benefits on overtime? Because I have a report that shows about 23 police officers are higher than 6 figures.
Correct. So this is the average base salary, not including overtime. We do pay pension on overtime.
Okay, so
these are the base amounts that I have listed.
So there's probably 20 to 25% of an adder to that.
Correct.
Thank you.
So on the next slide, just gives a little bit of a breakdown as to what the percentage changes are going to be over the next 3 years. So when they rolled out this proposed legislation, this was in probably like June or July of 2023, so they were hoping to get it passed by the end of the year for implementation January 1st. Obviously, that time has come and gone, so they will probably, if it does get passed this year, retroactively apply it to January 1st of this year. So the contribution amount requested for 2024 is 21%, 2025 is 22%, 2026 is 23%, and then getting to the 24% equaling fire in 2027. So as you can see, there is a desired increase for the employer contribution, and they have not made any requests to increase the employee contribution on either the police or the fire side at this point. So if we go to the next slide, this may be a chart that some of you have seen, it may not. So each year we pass the tax rates that go to the county. That happens before July every year. So these numbers are different than what we passed that I submitted for passage in June, because the county did their reappraisal, and obviously, you know, we've heard a lot of feedback from residents about, you know, tax increase. There was, I will say, a significant increase to Twinsburg's total overall value. So with the total property valuation for the city increasing, that did increase what our estimated collection amounts for the police pension, fire pension, and the police and fire levy fund will be receiving this year. So total between those three funds, and this is the only property tax that the city receives. All of the property tax the city receives goes directly to police and fire. We don't receive receive property tax for any other purpose. We will receive $2.3 million this year. So that is split up between those three funds. And if you could see on the screen, the highlighted totals break down police pension, fire pension, and then fire EMS police is our police and fire pension fund. So that includes a portion of their capital expenses as well.
And just to clarify, those are not estimates. These are actuals, what we will receive.
Correct.
Thank you.
So the estimates that we submitted, I want to say that based on what the numbers that we had last year, it was around $225,000 each for police and fire pension. And then I want to say it was like 1.6 million off the top of my head for the police and fire pension. So the valuation,
$500,000-ish.
yeah, so the valuation increase did bump those numbers up. So if we could move to the next slide. So as I just said a little bit, the city has three separate funds to pay for police and fire pension contributions. Police pension, which is 0.3 mils, that's inside millage. Fire pension, 0.3 mils, which is also inside millage. And then we have a 20-year levy for the police and fire levy fund, which is 2.4 mils. That equals our total 3 mils that the city has been capped at. So this is the amount of property tax that we will receive, nothing more, nothing less, unless.
For the next 18 years.
Correct.
Yeah. I thought that police and fire levy that we passed was permanent. I guess I didn't realize it was 20 years.
So they say permanent, but they're not really permanent.
Okay, thank you. That's,
Life sentence.
okay,
Pretty much.
okay, thank you.
So there's just a breakdown of the collection, just a little bit clearer from the previous slide. I know that the tax rate table is a little sketchy or hard to understand. So under the current employer contribution rate of 19.5% for police, the city contributes at minimum, so just base salary, not including any overtime, $606,000 for the police portion of pension. Again, that only takes into account the employee's base salary. That doesn't include any type of premium pay that they may get for, officer in charge, or any type of overtime, court pay, which are all items that they do get compensated for. So in 2023, the Police and Fire Pension Fund and the Police and Fire Levy Fund, the city paid $709,259 for the employer contribution to OP&F for police, and for fire it was $766,000. As I stated, there was an increase to our certified tax amounts. However, those numbers are only going to change every 3 to 6 years based on the reappraisal that the county does. So the chart below details the minimum contributions towards police and fire, given the estimated raises that we know. The only period that we have a definite rate increase that we know of is 2025 based on contract amounts. So we have not negotiated contracts that include 2026 and 2027 yet, so we don't know what type of employee raises are going to be included. So I ended up putting it at 2.5% just as a baseline. It could be less, it could be more. We just don't know at this point. So those break down the figures for, this is just the police portion, not including fire. So as you'll see, the 2024A is at the 19.5%, the 2024B is at the 21%, assuming that the change comes sometime this year. So by 2027, our number will have jumped over $150,000.
Okay. Comments, questions, concerns?
Has this passed or is this proposed?
So this is still proposed. The last time OML, Ohio Municipal League, sends out a nice newsletter weekly, so anyone can subscribe to it. They have a listserv. I would highly recommend that for everyone. I have passed that along to other directors because it's not just finance matters that they talk about, it's anything that's at the state level, legislature, that's going to affect townships, villages, municipalities. The last thing they sent out, it was in the, I want to say, the House Pension Committee for its 5th reading, so it hasn't made it to the floor yet. OML has done they sent out a survey to every city and village asking for input of what financial impact will this have on your city or your village. They received an outstanding amount of response, because it is a large chunk of what cities pay for, especially if you're a smaller village. But there was also, I think I mentioned at one of the previous meetings, they did a poll of the House and the Senate of, would you vote for this? And overwhelmingly, most of the members of both committees said yes, they would vote for it. So I assume it is going to pass at some point. It's just a matter of when does it make it fully.
Who's pushing it? Do you know who's, like, where did it initiate from?
It initiated in the House. I want to say it's 2 Republican House representatives from Southern Ohio. I can look that up though.
I have a meeting with Steve Devereaux, who's our it's not a ward, but it's the 31 district, thank you, next week, and I'll make sure that this is one of the topics.
Okay. So what does this mean for the city going forward? There we go. First, it means that more of that police and fire levy is going to have to be dedicated to pension costs. So right now, the split is roughly about 60% goes to their capital purchases and 40% goes to pension expenses. That number is going to have to flip. It's just inevitable. The pension cost is what it is. So either capital is going to have to be decreased, either the physical size of what we're purchasing, or we're just going to have to do more with less, or the general fund is going to have to supplement. Or the third option is go back to the voters and ask to increase the millage, which I don't think at this point anyone is probably in favor of, especially since it's a newer levy. It's only been in place for a few years. And capital replacements and improvements are continual expenses. As the things that we have purchased age, or as new technology becomes available, they just need to be replaced. I mean, we've seen how that's worked with body-worn cameras. The first, things that rolled out, 8-10 years ago were obsolete 2 years later. So I will say that the police and fire department both do a really good job of trying to find grant money for a lot of the purchases they have, which helps, but a lot of their purchases are large dollar value. You see the fire trucks, you see the police cruisers, those aren't just, small meal ticket purchases. So I think this is something to put on everyone's radar for when it does happen, that it is going to be a change in thinking. How do we allocate our money, and how do we ensure that we're spending it in the right place?
Yeah, so we have the fire truck, the ladder truck that we ordered.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. And we've got 2 ambulances that are on order.
Correct.
From a capital perspective, in fire, is that the only things for the next couple years?
That we're aware of. That
right,
he hasn't talked about yet. Yes. I mean,
what I meant by that is that's right. All that's come before us. That's all that I can recall off the top of my head. Okay.
Big,
we only have,
Christina, those were the big ticket items.
Right.
For the big purchases. And the good, as much as I pains me to say this, the only good thing about those ambulances is that we have made 2 payments already.
Right.
I would never recommend paying for something before you've received it, but given in the time of, aftermath of COVID, we're at where we're at. So the good thing is we've paid in cash 2 of those 5 payments. The ladder truck, my recommendation will probably be to roll that into the pool pack note and issue a bond on that.
Okay.
That will probably be later this year when that whole project gets started, but.
And the police fleet is
all constantly being replaced.
Yeah.
Detective vehicles and
Okay.
I mean,
Looking to replace everything this year.
the other
Every 3 years with the rollover.
Okay.
the other issue though, if memory serves me correctly, when Chief Basso and Lieutenant Storm were here, and they did talk about, we have 2 ladder trucks now.
Yep.
Replacing with this new one that we've jumped in line and saved money on, but that ultimately looking at another apparatus down the road.
Yes.
So, I mean, I do think that there is another $1 million plus fire truck
Next
looming,
5 or 6 years,
looming
yeah.
on the horizon.
Yeah. Okay.
If I understood that.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
That's how I recall.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
But that's one of those things that she's talking about that may have to change. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're right, but that might have to change.
Well, and yeah, the discussion that we had at the time was to go away from a second ladder. Do we actually need another ladder to go to a cheaper vehicle? But to your point, if I remember,
still seven figures.
Cheaper still 7 figures, and we're going to get to the point where the current truck has to be decommissioned because they just get to the point where they are beyond their useful life, where we cannot use them legally.
It won't have NFPA
Right.
certification.
Yeah. Okay.
So are there any questions over the House Bill 296 information?
Do you have any idea when this? I won't hold you to it. I mean, you think it's this year?
I would think it's this year.
Okay.
I'm surprised it's taken as long as it has, but that tells me that there's a lot of pushback from the local government level.
Okay.
Probably unanticipated pushback at the local government level.
We'll deal with it when we deal with it.
Bill Romer was our guy, and he's pretty easy to get a hold of. I gotta reach out to him and find out what they think they're doing.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on House Bill 296? All right. Up next, then, is series number 1 of finance functions. This is payroll.
So just to throw a little humor in here, if anyone has seen Office Space, we kind of get that question inadvertently a lot, which is, well, for your finance, you just pay bills. Well, I wish it were that easy. So I wanted to start with something that is not so near and dear to my heart, which is payroll, which I think everyone has heard kind of our growing pains over the last couple months in finance. I have learned more about payroll in the last 9 months than I probably ever want to in my entire life. But I will say, from every experience, it has helped me grow as a finance director because it has let me see the things that my past employee was having to do, and then will help me when we do fill that position of the things that position needs to entail and how I would like other departments to interact with payroll. So we process payroll for every single department. We use a timekeeping system, so every employee, with the exception of salaried employees, punches in on a time clock. That time clock gets uploaded. So every other week, department admins are going in. Police department, they're adding in whatever extra time, if this officer had court this day, Angel has to go in and manually enter that. If an employee had sick time, like each admin is going in and pretty much going through each employee's timesheet, and they are making sure that what's in that timekeeping system is accurate, and they submit it to finance. So currently, our process is once that gets done, it comes to me, and I'm going through each employee's timesheet and verifying that it's correct. So once I do that, it gets uploaded into our accounting system. The assistant finance director, Jennifer, she's a blessing. I can't speak enough accolades about how imperative she is to the function of our department. She takes it from there, which, God bless her, when we switched off so I could learn the other portion, I begged her to take it back because it was just that tedious. So we make any manual changes that our system, for whatever, cannot recognize, because obviously technology is not perfect. We had a conversation with the mayor that whatever you put in is what you get out. So if you put garbage into the system, you get garbage out. So we try to make sure that everything that gets put in is as accurate as what we have as possible, because at the end of the day, it is an employee's paycheck, and that to me is one of the most important functions that we do, because if we're not paying people correctly, we have unhappy employees, and at the end of the day, that's the last thing that you want to happen. So when we manipulate everything and we get everyone's rate set, we set everyone's longevity, any pay changes that come in, those all go in, and then we send out a department pay proof. And so those admins who are reviewing it are saying, you know what you have is great, we're good to go and pay those people. So that's just one small portion of payroll. So we assist with determining employee pay rates. So the annual salary ordinance that comes before you, we work with HR to determine those pay ranges. We let Tammy know these employees are at the top of their pay range. If we don't do some type of adjustment for them, they're going to be capped out. So we advise on those type of things. we manually change each employee's file. So employees who get a merit increase, or if you have a collective bargaining employee who gets a level increase mid-year, we do those, but we also do every single employee at the beginning. We did it at the end of the year last year, thank goodness, so we didn't have to do any retroactive payments, but we have to go in and manually change every employee's pay rate. And not only do you have to change their base pay rate, but you have to change their longevity rate. So for each employee, you're changing 2 to 3 rates. And those are all manual calculations for longevity. So someone has to go in and do a spreadsheet, generally myself or Jennifer, and then check it, and then enter all of those. So part of the whole payroll process is we do all of the reporting for pension reporting. We submit all of the pension reports to OPERS, to OPNF, to Social Security. We do payments to Department of Job and Family Services for child support payments, for bankruptcy payments, any type of deduction that the employee wants taken from their paycheck. If you want deferred comp, if you want, if you have 2 different bank accounts, those are all things that finance sets up and maintains. We send the file to the bank. So, for each of those separate payments, we have to upload and send something to the bank for all of those. So if we can go to the next slide, Mark. Processing retroactive payments. So in 2023, we had 4 contracts that were approved after the prior contract's expiration. So that means a retroactive payment for all those employees at all different points throughout the year. So police patrol, police sergeants, dispatch and fire captains, and their corresponding pension payments for those periods. So, the police department alone probably took 2 weeks to figure out their retro payments. There was not a single person whose retro payment was done incorrectly, so I will give our hats off to that. There was not a single complaint about that. But we also process special pays too, which are additional to your biweekly payroll. So we do 4 quarterly comp time cash outs, 2 holiday cash outs, an annual boot and uniform allowance. We do an annual sick leave cash out to their HSA, an annual sick leave cash out at the end of the year, and police and fire training bonus annually. So these are all payments that we do that are supplemental to doing payroll. We are in charge of determining employee accrual banks, so we monitor vacation carryover requests. We have to manually do all those things. There's no perfect payroll system by any means. So the amount of manual manipulation that we have to do, someone has to monitor that. And we have to interpret all the different contracts. So each different bargaining unit has different, things that affect their wages, their overtime. We're in charge of not only interpreting that, but applying that to someone's pay. So it's very important those things are done accurately and timely. And then any employee who falls under Section 147, they may have different language that applies to them. So each employee kind of falls in a different category, and you have to know what rules apply to them. And then finally, we're in charge of ensuring the accuracy of W-2 files. So your nice W-2 that everyone gets in the beginning of January, we're responsible for creating that, maintaining it, uploading it to the federal government. So these are just all things that finance in just the payroll portion, which we do not have a payroll person right now, is responsible for. So what would you say you do here? I would say we do a lot.
You do indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For not only for this presentation, but for all that you're doing. And comments, questions, concerns? No.
Any luck finding a payroll person?
Not currently. It's me.
How many apps do we have in?
5, so it's a very shallow pool.
It's shallow, everything's shallow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the Finance Committee or Council?
Nothing.
All right. Any miscellaneous this evening from the Finance Committee?
I did have one
Yes.
miscellaneous item. So I did include in an email, the Ohio Supreme Court did rule on the Schad work from home case. I included that. They did say that the taxpayer was still responsible and was not due a refund from his municipality for working from home. They are going to review the legal implications and all those refunds that they are holding. Again, everything's kind of in limbo, but I Rita has not let us know what percentage of that work from home money would be coming back to us, but know that that case was finally resolved, so we might be seeing some of that come back.
Okay. So the only thing that would be a positive for
Correct.
the city. Okay, perfect. All right, the next meeting date is Tuesday, March 26, 2024 is 6:30, okay? Do you want to do 6 o'clock?
I'm fine with 6:30.
Okay. Anybody, Finance Committee, anything else that we need to talk about? No. Okay. All right, for the time being, we'll do 6:30. If that changes, we can certainly modify it. All right, that said, we will adjourn the Finance Committee at 6:55 PM.